Hey, look, this is serious country. We have open hearts and open minds and have a bit of a laugh around all the serious matters that matter most. Now, of course, one of those matters is an awesome development in the funding of a simple laboratory test that could one day be available for farmers to test their livestock's tolerance to facial eczema. AgResearch's scientists have begun researching the feasibility of such a test in a pilot study being launched this month, funded by Beef and Lamb. Results are expected by March in the study, and to discuss this further is AgResearch's Dr Axel Heiser, who joins us now. Good evening, sir.
Hi, Sarah.
Now, Axel, what is the first phase in this scientific development?
Our idea is that we take cells from an animal that are easily accessible, like a saliva sample or a piece of skin or a blood sample, and we treat these cells with sporidesmin and see if it's toxic on these cells and what they do about it. But that's just our hypothesis for now. So that's our first phase. We get these cells and we treat them with sporidesmin, and then we throw everything we have in regard to cellular analysis at them, and we look at all the proteins and the RNA and the metabolites these cells make, and we try to find a pattern that's typical for a cell being poisoned with sporidesmin, and that's our first phase. If that works, if we can find that, then we take it further.
For those who are watching, Axel, who don't know much about this, the facial eczema disease is subclinical, so it doesn't show up. And of course, it's sometimes too late when the sporidesmin in the pasture gets to it. So how does a sort of pre-exposure to sporidesmin happen, and what point will farmers be able to take a sample and measure? Does that come from sort of through progeny testing and sort of DNA markers in sires, or at what point will we be able to find this tolerance?
Yes, this is absolutely geared towards helping breeding efforts to help breeders, but also the farmers that get semen or bulls from the breeders, to select the animals that are as tolerant as possible to facial eczema with a simple test. Currently, some tests are done with the breeding bulls and rams, and that is good. But if we had a simple test that ideally could be done on farm, then we can test all the ewes and dams and really speed up the breeding efforts of FE-tolerant animals.
Will you start with a lot of the claimed facial eczema tolerant rams and bulls?
Yes, so that's going to be our phase 2. So once we have an idea what these molecular patterns are that we're looking for, then we will look at the help of the industry to give us samples from these animals that are known to be very tolerant. And we also know that some breeds and animals in some areas are particularly susceptible, and we will compare the two and try to find how these patterns change between the tolerant and not so tolerant animals.
As we see, it is funded by Beef and Lamb and costs the industry considerably in lost production. What's the upside if we can get this right?
We will be much faster to get to herds that are more tolerant to facial eczema. We might get ahead of the developments in the South Island, where facial eczema is spreading thanks to global warming. But beyond that, Beef and Lamb is also funding for us to develop a bigger program around facial eczema, aimed to understand the ecology of the fungus that makes the sporidesmin, and better understanding the toxicology in the animal. So we will try to bring all of New Zealand's science together with all of New Zealand's stakeholders and try to develop a big program that hopefully can solve this problem once and for all.
Just interesting here, the facial eczema working group that you're referring to, that further study, trying to find out why it's a problem in New Zealand and not anywhere else. How many elements of that working group involve more than just livestock genetics in terms of our pasture genetics and our farm management systems?
We had a really good meeting of the group in May, and we identified that we need to go way beyond the genetics and the breeding. we need to understand why it's a problem in New Zealand and nowhere else, although the fungus is growing in Europe and North America as well. But only here is it causing problems. Why is it growing on some meadows and not on others? Why is it producing sporidesmin in some spores but not in others? So there's a lot of black boxes. And there was a bit of a frustration in the science and the farming community in the past 20 years, the lack of money and lack of progress. But science has come a long way, and we have a lot of things that we can do now, and we have learned a lot. So I'm optimistic that if we give it another go, we can succeed.
Axel, I'd just like to leave it with you in terms of a question around, what does the ideal, 2030 look like in your mind at AgResearch in terms of world-leading agricultural science? Big question.
That's a big
But
question.
we're talking about moving forward here together tonight on the show.
Yes. I'm very optimistic that science has a lot to contribute to farming. You talked about regenerative agriculture just before, and there's a lot for us to understand what it actually is and how we do it right. There is a lot to learn around our core sciences, animal health, animal sciences, pasture, and soil. And that's sometimes forgotten, and I would hope that these three core sciences are still strong in 10 years. And we need to open new doors. We need to try new things. We need to be innovative, and we have to find solutions to address consumer expectations and demands.
Wonderful way to leave it. Thank you so much, Dr. Alex Heiser there, a Senior Executive at AgResearch, leading the work in facial eczema. Very interesting developments there, and exciting that there's some serious funding from Beef and Lamb going into this space, because it is what did I read there, $266 million it costs us in lost production every year, that disease. So well worth it.
This is Sarah's Country.